Hello, this is Paul Kelway, the Wildlife Preparedness and Response Manager at Oil Spill Response. And welcome to the fifth episode in a series of interviews I'm doing with a network of leading wildlife response organizations that have all been participating in the multi-year Global Oiled Wildlife Response System, or GOWRS project. The intention is now to transition the project to a Global Oiled Wildlife Response Service, a guaranteed Tier 3 assessment team. To raise awareness of the incredible organizations that will be collectively delivering that service, I'm hosting monthly conversations with each of the 10 wildlife partners. This month, I'm joined by Sascha Regmann, the Managing Director of ProBird, a network of leading organizations in Germany that are working together on oiled wildlife preparedness and response. Sascha first responded to an oiled wildlife incident in 1998 when the freighter Pallas ran aground off the German coast. Since then, he's responded to the Erika oil spill in France, the Prestige oil spill in Spain, and numerous other oiled wildlife incidents across Europe. Sascha founded ProBird in 2014 and has represented the organisation both on the EU-funded Euroa project, which has been improving preparedness for wildlife incidents in Europe, as well as on the GOWRS project. So, Sascha, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Paul. Thank you for inviting me to this interview.
Great. Well, ProBird are the fifth interviewee in our series of interviews with the GOWRS partners. So just to begin with, I wanted to ask you if you could briefly introduce ProBird. So what is your mission and where and how do you carry out your work?
Okay, so the ProBird network has started in 2004, I think. Different German animal welfare organizations have worked before separately on several oiled wildlife response campaigns, European-wide, like the Erika, Prestige, Tricolor spill. And then in 2004, we had a mystery spill here at the German coast. And we found out that it makes more sense to focus our work under one umbrella, especially dealing with authorities, clients, and the media, of course. That is much easier that way. And speaking with one voice, mixing up the teams, gaining experiences, having more manpower and equipment and so on is a very high good. Then finally, ProBird was registered in 2014 and is accepted as a non-for-profit organization.
That's great. So yeah, you're a network, but you have this long-standing history of working together.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Great. Well, is there one example of a story that perhaps illustrates the work that you do and just, sort of speaks to that?
Yeah, so there are several stories after all those campaigns, Paul. But yeah, working with animals in need is always a very emotional issue. And people don't like to see pictures of oiled wildlife on dirty beaches and things like that on television or in the newspapers. It's a good sign to show responsibility by trying to rescue those affected wildlife. And after all those years and campaigns, every time you release a clean bird, this is a highlight for every responder still. And therefore, we always invite new volunteers or engaged people when we are releasing animals. The moment a former patient is released back to the wild makes people happy, and it shows that the measures that you have done before were 100% right. But now coming back to your direct question, I remember that at one oil spill we had a bird that was already ringed, and it was a cormorant. By checking the ring number, we found out that this animal was oiled and rehabilitated and released 6 years before already in England. So it was a poor body, but saving that life for a second time, that was really a great feeling. And maybe this is the one story that I can mention at that point.
Yeah, it's a fantastic story, and it speaks to, as you say, the importance of applying the right technical standards as well, so that we can have those success rates and hopefully see long-term survivability of animals as well. And great to have people involved in the release of those animals and see the outcome of all that work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Well as all the work that you do in Germany and in Europe, ProBird have also been a partner in the Global Oiled Wildlife Response System project. So what do you see as one of the most significant achievements of that project, of that collaboration?
Yeah, so such a pool of specialized people and organizations provides a unique opportunity of exchanging the experiences. Within the past years, we have had the chance to visit a lot of GOWRS partners in their comfort zone. That means at their rehab centers. And just by visiting their facilities and their equipment and all the long conversations in the evening and all the discussions, we learned a lot from each other. Every time when I then back home, so when I reflect the visit, I think, what have you seen? What have you learned? How can you implement parts of that into your system? But it's not just visiting our partners and learning from their experiences. It's also the permanent exchange also within our fantastic GOWRS working groups that raises the quality and brings us specialists closer together.
Yeah, that's great. And it's been a long journey to develop, some of the collaboration, and now to be ready to transition that that project into a service. What do you see as really some of the most important benefits for having it now transition into a service for wildlife response preparedness?
So for us as an organization, that's easy to answer, Paul. A funded service will give us the opportunity to grow. We can have regular trainings and exercises, and that will also raise the quality, of course. And we will have the opportunity to bring new people in and maybe to hand over one day our experiences to the next generation of wildlife responders. So we are not that young anymore. And therefore, a funded service will enable us to expand our equipment as well. And yeah, as said, bringing more people into the game. And there's one more thought. A barrier for us as a non-native English speaker is that we have to translate all the materials that we are developing within GOWRS and also within our European network. The special vocabulary with regards to trainings and exercises is really hard to understand for German staff and volunteers. Therefore, it's a little bit of double work for us, but yeah, it's worth to do it.
Yeah, no, that's great. So clearly some real benefits as far as really shoring up the expertise that exists today, and hopefully making sure that it remains available in the future. I suppose the second part of that question is what do you see as some of the benefits of the service when we think about an odd wildlife incident, when we think about what happens when you have a situation involving wildlife?
Yeah, so we have seen it in some of our exercises, and yeah, as I'm working in the exercise working group, when we have those scenarios, it's easy to see that in most of the countries there are GOWRS partners already existing. It's in America, in South Africa, South America, and in New Zealand, stuff like this. So in every part of the world, I think we will be able to be very quickly there. And within our evaluations, we found out that it's easy also to mixing those groups. If we, for example, will have an old wildlife response somewhere in America, we can mix up the American teams, or so it's very easy to come together. And I think this is very interesting for the industry, definitively. Yeah.
That's right, and I think, as you say, it's that ability to draw on a pool of experts, and essentially create the right team for the right situation. And I know there's been many examples that you've been involved in Europe where those international experts have really been able to add value to those in-country responders and really make sure that they feel supported and they have the benefit of that experience.
Yeah, and as said, so during our discussions when we have our GOWRS meetings, so we found out that we will have experts for this and for that animal species, which makes it also very interesting. So you cannot know all the species on Earth if you are working in Europe, for example, but therefore we have those people, as said, in South Africa or South America, dealing with penguins, for example. That makes it very interesting, and yeah, so therefore we can act very quickly, and we can act on different animal species.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, finally, our next featured GOWRS partner will be the RSPCA. And so on our last discussion, we had the Old Wildlife Care Network provide a bit of an introduction to ProBird. So I was going to ask you if you would be willing to do the same and just say something that you particularly admire about the RSPCA, who will be our next guest.
Okay, yeah. So the RSPCA is one of the oldest and biggest animal welfare organizations here in Europe. So they have a lot of experienced staff, inspectors, dedicated animal carers, and they run, of course, several wildlife rehab centers, but also animal shelters. And in all those years since they're existing, the RSPCA have saved countless numbers of pets, farm animals, and wildlife. I very much appreciate that engagement. It's simply incredible after all those years. And I think what I also can say about the RSPCA, we met people from the RSPCA first, I think it was 2003 during the tricolor oil spill in Belgium. And since then, our ways have crossed often. So we met them again in 2006 during a mystery oil spill in Estonia, and then 3 years later in Norway during the full city oil wildlife response. Yeah, and in the aftermath of that campaign, the full city in Norway, we decided to build up a kind of a European oil wildlife responders cooperation or something like that. This was really the starting point here in Europe. And the Sea Alarm Foundation that is based in Brussels brought us to a table together. And so the RSPCA, the Wildlife Rescue Center in Ostend, ProBird, and some other stakeholders shared protocols, experiences, and visions for the future. So we started developing common guidelines, for example, and that led to the Eurova project that was co-financed by the European Union. I think it was 2014 and 15. It was the same time when also GOWRS started, so very busy days, you can imagine. Yeah, what else can I say about the RSPCA? So yeah, the two people that I represent the RSPCA within our GOWRS group are Adam Grogan and Richard Thompson. I know both since long years, and I can say they mean much more than simple working colleagues to me after all those years. And yeah, Adam has a huge knowledge in organizing and steering a group and making big step progresses with that group. So yeah, I also very much appreciate his background in mammal species. So if you have a question about otters, for example, ask Adam, he will answer it directly. And Richard Thompson, yeah, he has decades of background in the care of old wildlife. His knowledge is tremendous. So, Paul, did you know that Richard is part of ProBird's board of advisors?
That's right. Yes. So there's a formal link between your organizations.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to seeing both very soon again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great, Sascha. And again, it really reinforces the great relationships that exist and the respect that's there between the different wildlife partners that work together. So yeah, that's a really great introduction, and I'll look forward to talking with them next time. But just before we wrap up, anything else that you'd like to share before we close?
Yeah, so I would like to meet all my colleagues very soon again. But yeah, Corona is a big issue, and we have also these problems within our European network. So we have plans for trainings in December, and next week we normally would like to have a manager meeting, a manager training course in Ostend, but it's still not clear if it's okay to go there. So people are traveling and coming by plane. It's still up in the air. So yeah, this pandemic situation is a hard task, I think, for all of us. All those telephone conferences, and this is now almost 2 years ago that COVID started. So it's a hard task, and I'm really looking forward to see all the buddies back soon again.
Yes, yeah. Let's hope that we can do that soon. In the meantime, it's great that we can connect virtually, but it's not as good as doing it in person. So, but Sascha, for now, thank you so much for speaking with me today, and obviously wish ProBird all the best for the future.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Bye for now.
Bye.